The sunlight in Ward 8 has a heaviness to it, like it's trying to press everything into memory before it slips away. It floods through the old windows in wide bands, catching dust in its beams and making everything look older than it already is. The radiator clanks in the morning, the pipes gurgling like something trying to breathe beneath the floor. It's always quiet there, too quiet. Even when the patients are awake, they speak in murmurs, like they're afraid of being overheard. My name is Judith. I'm 53 years old. I've been a hospice nurse here for nearly 2 decades, which is a long time to watch people fade. You get used to the routines, the medications, the good days, the bad nights. You learn how to hold someone's hand while they go. You stop crying after a while, at least most of the time. I used to think dying was a kind of forgetting, like someone gently peeling themselves away from the world, forgetting names, then places, then even their own body. But I don't think that anymore. Not since I started seeing the cat. No one really knows where it came from. It just started appearing one fall, right around the time Mr. Colby passed. I remember because the windows were open and the leaves had started to turn brittle and red, like old paper. I had gone to check on Mr. Colby. He had been declining steadily for days, and when I stepped into the room, there it was, a tabby cat, curled up right beside him on the bed. Calm. Still. I blinked a few times, unsure. We didn't allow animals in Ward 8. Families sometimes brought in therapy dogs or small pets for a quick visit, but there was a protocol, sign-in sheets, approvals. I hadn't seen anyone bring a cat in, and besides, the doors had been closed all morning. Ain't. I gently reached for the cat, ready to usher it out, but it opened its eyes, looked at me, and then, without moving, lowered its gaze behind me. Not at me, not past me, behind me. My neck went cold. I turned quickly, expecting to see someone. The hallway was empty. That night, Mr. Colby passed, peacefully. No struggle, no breathy gasps or reaching for hands, just quiet. The cat was gone when I came back with the chart. After that, I started noticing patterns. The cat only appeared before a patient passed, always in Ward 8. Never during a code, never during a recovery, only during the stillness, and it never stayed long. I'd glimpse it slipping through doorways, its tail brushing along the frame like it belonged here. I asked the other nurses about it, but no one ever saw it. I even asked maintenance about the cat door in the East Wing sunroom, an old wooden panel with a little rubber flap, but they said there wasn't a cat door there, that I must be mistaken. I went to look again, the next day. It was gone. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was someone's emotional support animal. Maybe I was overtired. But it kept happening. Each time I saw the cat, someone would pass, always within 24 hours. I started to dread seeing it. I'd hold my breath walking past the windows, afraid to catch it in my peripheral vision. And when I didn't see it for a while, I'd relax, just a bit, until it came back. One morning, I was assigned to Mrs. Patterson, a woman in her early 60s with terminal liver cancer. She wasn't declining yet, still lucid, eating in small bites, talking about her grandchildren. She'd been reading a mystery novel when I walked in to check her vitals. The cat was curled up on the floor beside her chair. I froze. My hands went numb. Mrs. Patterson smiled at me, oblivious, and asked if I could bring her more lemon water. I nodded, backed out of the room, and leaned against the wall. The air felt thin. I looked back inside. The cat stared at me. Its eyes were wide and still. I didn't go back in until I had someone accompany me. That night, Mrs. Patterson coded. It was sudden, massive clot, nothing anyone could have predicted. The next morning, when I returned to the room, I noticed paw prints in the dust near the window. They led into the wall, then stopped, right where the cat door had been weeks ago. The wall was solid now, just old plaster. I stopped sleeping well after that. I started hearing faint purring in the staff lounge when I was alone. Once I felt something brush against my leg under the medication cart, but when I looked down, there was nothing. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? I thought maybe I was just unraveling. Too many shifts, too much grief. But it didn't feel like grief. It felt like something watching me. Then one evening, after a long shift, I found the cat in the staff hallway, not near a patient's room, not watching anyone else, just sitting in front of the break room door, waiting. I stood still. My heart was loud in my ears. It blinked slowly. Then, as if bored, it turned and walked away. Not down the corridor, but through the wall. I haven't seen it since, but I know it's still here. Sometimes, when the wind hits the windows just right, I swear I can hear something scratching at the glass. And sometimes, when I walk into a room, I feel like someone's already there, like something's already said goodbye. I've tried to make peace with it. Some nurses pray before every shift. Others wear charms, little silver crosses or prayer beads tucked into their scrubs. I started keeping salt under my bed. I don't know if it works, but I sleep a little easier. I don't think it's evil, whatever it is. I don't even think it causes death. I think it's something older than that, a presence that understands when someone's ready to let go. Maybe it doesn't come to take. Maybe it comes to witness. I still work in Ward 8. I still listen for the radiator clanking in the morning, still watch the light settle on empty chairs. I still hold hands, speak soft words, brush hair back from damp foreheads. But now, I look twice at every shadow, and I never assume I'm alone. Some nights when it's quiet, I whisper to the room, even if no one's there. Just a soft word, just in case something is listening. And sometimes, I think it whispers back. There's a silence in the laundry basement that doesn't feel like quiet. It feels like something waiting. The fluorescent lights hum just above the threshold of hearing, and every sound echoes too much. The walls are cinder block, still cold even in the summer. It always smells like bleach and warm fabric, but somehow never clean. Nothing feels clean down there. Not really. My name is Martin. I'm 38. I work nights as a janitor at Hospice. I mostly keep to the lower levels, storage rooms, maintenance closets, the boiler hallway, and the basement laundry. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. I took this job after my brother passed away upstairs in room 114. I guess in some way, I just wanted to stay close to where he last was. That probably sounds weird, but grief makes weird things seem reasonable. At first, it was just laundry, loads and loads of it. Sheets, gowns, towels, all in endless carts. I'd haul them into the big industrial washers, switch to dryers, fold them while the steam made my glasses fog. Sometimes, if I finished early, I'd just sit down there on one of the metal benches and listen to the machines drum away. It became my ritual, my quiet. But about 6 months ago, I started hearing something else. It began with footsteps, not mine. These were slower, heavier pacing. I'd shut off the washer, thinking someone had come down to grab a uniform, or maybe just lost, but there'd be no one, just the sound fading away into silence. I started checking the security monitors. Nothing, just static and stillness. Then one night, I was sorting sheets when I heard a low growl, deep, guttural, close. I spun around, nothing there, but the sound was real. My heart was thumping so hard, I thought I might pass out. It wasn't until the third time that I saw it. I was loading the final dryer at around 2 a.m. I turned to grab the next bundle and froze. There, just beyond the folding table, standing half in shadow, was a large black dog. It didn't move. It just stared at me. Not panting, not curious, just watching. Its eyes weren't right. They were too dull, like glass marble sunk too deep into its skull. And its fur looked matted, wet in places, though there wasn't a single footprint on the tile floor beneath it. I blinked, and it was gone. I tried telling myself I was sleep-deprived, hallucinating. Maybe it was a trick of the lights, but I couldn't shake the feeling it had been real, the kind of real that settles into your bones. Over the following weeks, the sightings increased. Sometimes it would appear behind the dryers. Once I saw it reflected in the metal chute door, even though there was nothing behind me. Another time, I caught it mid-step, passing the hallway, its nails clicking on the tiles like a metronome counting down something I didn't want to know. I stopped sitting down there. I did my work faster, eyes darting to every corner. One night, I brought my phone out and tried to snap a photo when I saw it, but the camera just showed an empty room and the screen started glitching, freezing up until I powered it off. I hadn't told anyone. Who would believe me? Then one night, I ran into Deborah, one of the overnight nurses. She came down to grab a replacement set of scrubs, and I asked her casually if she'd ever seen anything strange in the basement. She paused, her hand on the cupboard, and said, "Do you mean the dog?" I just stared. She told me she'd seen it once, years ago when she worked laundry before getting her RN license. She'd been down here alone when it trotted past her into the shadows. She'd thought it was a stray, but when she followed it, it vanished between two sealed brick walls. After that, she never went down without music in her ears. Said the silence made her feel like something was breathing behind it. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed. I wanted to know if it would come again. At 3:17 a.m., I heard the growl. It wasn't far. I was sitting by the folding table with a flashlight in my lap, every light in the laundry room on, my hands trembling. The growl grew louder, echoing through the vent system. Then came the sound of claws scraping against metal. The chute door shuddered. I aimed the flashlight at the far corner, and there it was. The dog stood facing me, but it wasn't watching me. It was staring past me, behind me, just like the cat from that story nurses told about Ward 8. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Its body began to twitch, not violently, but like it was, shivering. Its jaw opened slightly, and I swear to God I heard a whisper, not a bark, not a growl, a whisper right into the space of my ear, like it was inside my hearing. Then it vanished again. That was the worst part. It always left, never chased, never lunged, just appeared, waited, and then was gone. The next day, I asked admin about the history of the building. It used to be a tuberculosis sanatorium back in the 1920s. Then it became a mental health ward. Finally, the hospice wing was added in the 70s. But back in the 1950s, I found out there had been a therapy dog kept for the long-term psychiatric residents. His name was Copper. He died in the laundry basement. Apparently, he'd gotten trapped down there during a weekend staff strike. No one knew he was there. By the time someone found him, it was too late. They said he'd scratched at the door for hours, and the marks were still there under the coat of paint, if you looked close enough. I looked. They're there, so maybe it's him, maybe it's not. But now, when I go down, I bring an extra towel. I lay it on the floor. I leave the dryer open. Sometimes I even speak out loud. Just simple things like, "I'm here," or "It's okay." I don't know why I do it. Maybe I want him to know he's not forgotten. Maybe I want him to know I hear him, because I think that's what it's about. Not death, not ghosts. Just someone trying not to be alone anymore. Trapped in a memory, in a hallway, in a room with no windows. And some nights, if I leave the towel folded just right, I come back and it's been moved, flattened, as if something curled up there for a little while. I never see it move, but I always feel it, just before I leave, like eyes behind the air, watching, waiting. At certain times of day, the light in room 2413 takes on the color of old paper, pale gold, soft, almost brittle. The curtains flutter even when the windows are shut, and the radiator beneath them hisses like it's sighing in its sleep. The wallpaper is peeling in one corner, revealing a layer beneath with faint outlines of ivy. There's a chair by the bed that no one ever sits in. It always faces the window, even when I turn it away. My name is Elias. I'm 44 years old, and I work as a hospice orderly. I don't have the patience for paperwork or the nerves for medicine. I'm the quiet one who changes bedpans, takes out the trash, delivers meal trays no one finishes. I take walks with patients when they're well enough, and when they're not, I sit beside them while they sleep, sometimes humming without realizing I'm doing it. I used to love birds. I fed them from the windowsill in my apartment. I even kept a feeder in the courtyard before admin said it was a pest risk. They used to land so close to me. I could see the tremble of their tiny throats, the shimmer in their wings. But I can't stand them anymore. Not after room 2113. It was winter when I was first assigned to that wing. Most of the rooms were unoccupied or had long-term cases, 2113 was supposed to be empty. I was told it was in disrepair, waiting for repainting and new floor tiles. But the door was always shut, and no one ever seemed to go in. The clipboard outside hadn't been touched in weeks. Still, every few days, I'd hear chirping coming from behind it. Not loud, just soft, persistent, like birds, not like a recording or the TV. These were small, living sounds, wings brushing fabric, beaks tapping glass, and every time I checked with the key, the room would be empty, undisturbed, dust thick on the bedside table, the bed made tight and quiet, always quiet, the moment I opened the door. I thought I was imagining it. Auditory fatigue, maybe, echoes from the trees outside. But the thing is, there are no trees by that side of the building. Just a parking lot and a loading dock, nothing to nest in, nothing to sing from. I started asking questions, carefully. Karen, one of the senior nurses, told me that years ago, a woman named Mrs. Delaney had passed away in 2013. She was an older patient, early onset Alzheimer's, non-verbal by the end. But in her early weeks, she talked constantly about birds, said they came to visit her, sat on the foot of the bed, brought her messages in their feathers. The staff chalked it up to delusion. She used to tear bits of her bed sheets and fold them into crude wings, humming to them until she fell asleep. When she died, 3 birds were found in the room, dead, no windows open, no way in or out. After that, patients who were put in 2013 started complaining, saying they heard flapping in the vents, saw shapes on the ceiling. One even claimed a bird landed on their chest and whispered something in their ear. The room was closed off not long after, but no one ever fixed the locks. And one night, I made the mistake of staying inside too long. It was around 11 p.m. I'd finished my rounds and had gone back to 213 to retrieve my keys, which I'd left on the windowsill. I opened the door and stepped in quickly, not even turning on the light. The keys were there, right where I'd left them. That's when I heard the flutter, right above me. I looked up and saw the ceiling rippling, not breaking or crumbling, but moving, like something was shifting underneath the paint. Then came the sound of talons tapping, hundreds of them, like claws skating over glass. I stepped back toward the door. The light from the hallway cast a perfect rectangle across the bed, and in that rectangle I saw a feather, pale gray, upright, as if it had just landed. Then another fell, and another. They didn't drift, they dropped, like stones. I turned and left, fast. The next morning, the feathers were gone. The room was undisturbed, no footprints, no trace, except for a single thread of what looked like linen, folded twice, shaped like a wing. It lay on the bedside table. I didn't touch it. I began avoiding that hallway. I rerouted supply deliveries, just to keep clear, but somehow I'd still hear the sounds, sometimes during the day, sometimes when I was walking past the room, on the floor above. One afternoon, I found tiny scratches all over my cart, as if something had perched on it and dug its claws in. I started dreaming of wings, not big, beautiful wings, but thin, trembling ones, beating too fast, like panic. In the dreams, I was always lying in that bed, unable to move, while hundreds of tiny birds circled above me, never landing. Their shadows made the room look like it was underwater. One morning, I came in early and found a new patient assigned to 213. A clerical error, they said. Someone had updated the digital chart, but hadn't cross-checked the status of the room. Her name was Nora, mid-40s, terminal lymphoma. When I entered the room, she was staring at the ceiling. "I heard them last night," she said without turning her head. I didn't answer. They were singing, but not songs, just one note, over and over. I told her I'd be back with her breakfast. I never did return. She died 3 days later. After that, I asked for a different floor. I couldn't walk past 2113 anymore. Every time I did, I felt a weight on my chest, a pressure, like something small and unseen had landed there and refused to lift off. I think about Nora. I think about Mrs. Delaney. I think about the birds and the thread wings and the feather that didn't drift. And I wonder if they come for people who are already slipping away, if they carry them somewhere else, one feather at a time. I don't go near birds now. If I see them in the parking lot or perched on the windowsills. I look away. I used to think they were free, that flying meant escape, but now I think there are birds that stay behind, birds that belong to rooms, not skies. And sometimes when I'm changing linens in other rooms, I'll find a single feather tucked under the pillow. Not every time, just enough to make me wonder. I always throw it away, but it never feels like it stays gone. In the early morning, before the patients are awake and the machines start their beeping symphony, the garden behind the hospice is a world unto itself. Mist gathers low along the worn paths, curling around the cement angel statues and creeping between the gnarled roots of leafless trees. The benches are always damp, the air tastes like iron, and there's a stillness in that little patch of fenced-off earth that never feels natural. It feels expectant. My name is Janice. I'm 61, and I'm the morning nurse on rotation at Larkpine Hospice. I've worked in hospice care for over 30 years. People think that must make me strong, but it doesn't. It just makes me quiet. You learn not to hold on too tightly, not to reach for happy endings. We're not here for that. We're here to listen when no one else will, to stay when everyone else is gone. I started noticing the rabbit after my third winter at Larkpine. The garden was already cold then, hard underfoot. No flowers bloomed that time of year, just dead branches and frostbitten vines. The old bird bath in the center had cracked down the middle from a freeze 2 years before, and no one had bothered to replace it. I was out there with a patient named Harold, helping him get some fresh air. He was barely able to stand, hunched over his walker, but he insisted on walking the path once a day. Keeps the lungs working, he used to say, though we both knew the truth. That morning, we saw it. A white rabbit, sitting perfectly still near the base of the statue of St. Francis, half concealed in a patch of brittle ivy. It didn't move when we walked by, didn't twitch an ear, just watched us, eyes like glass beads. Harold stared at it for a long time. Then he asked me, very softly, "Do you see it too?" I said I did. "I used to dream about rabbits when I was a kid," he muttered, "but they always had human hands." He died that night. I didn't think much of it. Coincidences happen all the time in a place like this. But a week later, I was walking the perimeter to check the gate lock when I saw the rabbit again. Same spot, same posture, still and unnatural. I took a step closer. It didn't flinch, just looked up at me like it knew me. That night, another patient passed, Mrs. Lindgren, peaceful, quiet. We hadn't even expected it yet. She hadn't been lucid for days, but just before she passed, the overnight nurse said she sat upright in bed, eyes wide, and whispered, "It's waiting in the garden." After that, I began keeping track. I never told anyone. What would I say? That I thought there was a rabbit predicting death, that it only showed itself the day someone was going to die. But it happened again and again. Every time I saw it, always in the same spot, beneath St. Francis, someone would die within 24 hours, never violently, never suddenly, just quietly, like the rabbit had nodded, and that was that. I tried talking to it once. I felt stupid, but I'd just come off a long shift and felt hollowed out. It was sitting in its place, watching me. I crouched and said, "Why here?" It blinked, and for a moment I swear its mouth moved, not like a twitch, but like it was about to speak. Nothing came out, of course, but that night I dreamed I was in the garden again, and the rabbit was standing upright on 2 legs, wearing one of our white patient gowns. Its hands, human hands, held a small clipboard. I woke up in a sweat. I called in sick that day. It stopped appearing for a while, almost a month. I thought maybe it had left. Maybe the cold had finally taken it, but I still checked the statue every morning, like a habit I couldn't shake. Then, one morning, just after the first snowfall of the season, I saw the tracks. Tiny, perfect paw prints in the snow, leading in a circle around the bird bath and ending beneath St. Francis. But there was no rabbit, just the tracks. No leading out, just in. That day, no one died. The next day, the tracks were back. This time, the rabbit was sitting in the middle of them, turned away from me, facing the statue. I didn't go closer. I just watched from the sliding door. That evening, one of our youngest patients, Liam, only 28, passed. He'd been lucid just the day before. We thought he had a week, maybe 2, but he slipped away in the early dark, his mother asleep in the chair beside him. I broke a rule that night. After shift, I walked into the garden alone, long after visiting hours, wrapped in my coat. The sky was heavy with clouds, but no snow had come. The air felt thick, like breath held in a closed mouth. The rabbit was there. I stepped closer. "Are you Death?" I asked, voice shaking. It didn't move. I reached out not to touch it, but just to be near it, to understand something, anything. But then it turned and ran, not away from me, but around the bird bath 3 times, then vanished. Not into the hedge, not down a hole. It just vanished like smoke curling into nothing. After that, I didn't see it for 2 months. I convinced myself it was gone. Maybe I'd finally imagined the whole thing. Maybe grief plays tricks, even on the seasoned. But then one foggy morning, as I brought Mrs. Kent out for a wheelchair stroll, she pointed at the statue and said, "Look at that pretty thing, the rabbit." It was back. That evening, Mrs. Kent passed in her sleep. Now I leave offerings. I know how that sounds, but I do. A bit of lettuce, a piece of apple, nothing fancy. I place them near the statue and wait. Some mornings, the food is untouched. Others, it's gone. No bite marks, just gone. I don't fear the rabbit anymore. I think in its way it's a kindness, a warning, a presence. Maybe it's always been there, tied to the cold garden, to the silence between breaths. Maybe it waits in other places too, behind windows, beneath trees, in patches of snow where no one looks. I've started writing down the days I see it. I don't tell the others. This is mine, my quiet secret, my strange companion in this place of endings. And sometimes when I pass the statue I feel watched, not in a threatening way, more like I'm being accounted for, like someone's keeping track of the names. Someday I know, it'll be waiting for me, and when it is, I hope it sits very still and lets me look into its eyes one last time. Some rooms never feel right, no matter how much bleach you pour into the corners, or how brightly the bulbs hum overhead. The second-floor staff bathroom is one of those places. Too quiet, too humid, like the air never circulates. The mirror always fogs up too easily, and even when it's wiped clean, it leaves behind faint patterns, like fingerprints that don't belong to anyone. My name is Darren. I'm 38. I work nights at Stillgrove Hospice as a maintenance tech. Mostly I unclog drains, change flickering lights, and make sure the water heaters don't explode. I don't interact much with patients. I'm the guy behind the wall, the one they forget is there. I like it that way. I've got my own ghosts and not much appetite for new ones. But I started using that second-floor bathroom on my breaks about a year ago. It's at the far end of the old wing, used to be the psych unit before the funding dried up. These days it's storage and a couple admin offices no one uses after 5. The bathroom's tucked in behind a file room, and because nobody ever goes up there, it's the only place I can get 5 minutes of peace without someone asking for a wrench or a flashlight. The first time I saw the moth, it was just after a storm. The power had blinked off for about 3 seconds, long enough to send the emergency lights humming and trip half the system. I was up in that hallway, checking circuit breakers, when I decided to wash the dust off my face. The bathroom was damp as always, the tile floor just beginning to sweat from the change in air pressure. I leaned over the sink, looked up, and there it was, perched on the mirror, right over my reflection shoulder, a big black moth. Wings spread wide, the kind you don't usually see indoors. It wasn't fluttering, just sitting there, completely still, like it was staring right at me. I turned around to catch it. There was nothing there, but when I looked back into the mirror, it was still there. I stood like that for a good minute, blinking, my breath starting to fog the glass. The moth never moved. It just hovered in the mirror world, wings pulsing ever so slightly, as if breathing. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I tell? It's just a mirror, just a moth. Except, you know when something feels wrong. I've worked in this building for 5 years. I know wrong when I feel it. After that, I started seeing it more often, always when I was alone, always in the mirror, never in the room. Sometimes it would be on the mirror's edge, sometimes right above the faucet. One time it was clinging to the reflection of my own face, right across my cheek. I could feel something cold then, like pressure, but from inside beneath the skin. I thought I was losing it, started avoiding the bathroom altogether. But that Wings breaker box is still up there, and every so often, I had no choice but to walk past it. Each time I did, I'd feel something pull at the base of my neck, like being watched through glass. One night, I got a work order for a backed-up sink, in that same bathroom. Of course, I waited an hour, hoping the nurse would forget about it, but she didn't. So I grabbed my kit and went. It was 3:12 a.m. I remember the exact time because my watch had just buzzed with a hydration reminder. The hallway was dead quiet, no footfalls, no carts, just that low electrical hum you only hear when everything else is silent. I opened the bathroom door. The mirror was already fogged, even though it wasn't warm. I didn't see the moth at first. I set down my tools, got to work under the sink, barely looking up, but then something tapped the mirror, a tiny, soft tick. Then again, I froze. The room smelled like damp paper. I slowly stood up, turned toward the sink, and looked. There it was. But this time, it wasn't on the mirror. It was inside it. I don't mean a reflection. I mean within the glass. Wings beating softly behind the silvered surface, like it had gotten trapped between two dimensions. Its wings weren't black anymore. They shimmered slightly, like bruises under skin. And its body, it pulsed, like it was breathing too fast, like something anxious. I reached out, stupidly, pressed my fingers to the glass. It turned toward me, only for a moment. Then it vanished, not flew away, vanished. And behind the mirror, for the briefest second, I saw something else, a shape, human shape, standing in the fog behind the glass. No details, just the outline, head cocked, watching me. I yanked my hand back, nearly tripped over the toolbox trying to leave. I told myself it was exhaustion, night shift psychosis, a trick of light. But that same week, a patient named Carla hung herself in her room. She was young, mid-30s, came in for terminal pain management, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She'd been withdrawn, but never talked about ending it herself. Her nurse said the day before, she'd spent almost 10 minutes in that same bathroom, just standing there, staring into the mirror. When asked what she was doing, she replied, "I think it sees me too." That stuck in my ribs like a nail. After that, I started paying closer attention to the patients, to the quiet ones, to the ones who looked in mirrors a little too long. I started marking the days I saw the moth. Every time it appeared, someone died. Not immediately, not violently, but soon, always soon. It became a pattern I couldn't unsee. Sometimes I'd hear them talking in the hallway. The nurses, "She's been staring at her reflection again," they'd whisper, "just stands there, not moving." I started warning them, subtly, suggesting they check in, offer support. Sometimes they listened, sometimes they didn't. The moth kept coming. One night, after a particularly bad storm, the entire wing went dark. Backup generator kicked in, but the bathroom stayed black. They sent me to check it. I didn't want to, but I went. The mirror was there, as always, slightly tilted now, as if the wall had shifted. I turned on my flashlight. The beam bounced off the glass, and I saw not one, but dozens of moths behind it, fluttering softly in slow motion, not random, patterned, like they were moving in sync, and among them, the outline again, this time closer, this time watching me. I turned and ran. I haven't used that bathroom since, but I still feel it sometimes, when I pass mirrors at night, when I wipe condensation and see something just off in the reflection. I think the moth isn't the thing to fear. I think it's a harbinger, a marker, a signal. I think it shows up when the barrier between this world and that quiet waiting space behind the glass is wearing thin, and one day, maybe not soon, but someday, it'll stop fluttering and just land on me, and I'll know, and I'll go quietly, like all the others. No screams, no struggle, just breath against glass, and a wing beat in the silence.